Hi, Ganesh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we're on. I like your background.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you.
You've been seeing the MD today as well, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having a foot issue, so I don't
Are
know,
you?
some sort of arthritis. But anyways, yeah, looks like you have something going on here.
Yeah, it's the old it's just, yeah, it's the skin cancer you get when you're out in too much sunshine. So let this be a lesson to you. You use your sunscreen. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Wonderful. So yeah, let's just get started. 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Cricketing USA show with Ganesh Sanap. With me here we have Mr. David Sentance. He has been the historian of USA cricket.
Oh, thanks, Ganesh.
Yes, absolutely. A historian of USA cricket. He's been the administrator of USA cricket. He's been a stalwart of Southern California Cricket Association and USA cricket, of course. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the stage to you, sir, and give us about your journey across the world when it comes to cricket and everything that you've seen over the years.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things that my research drew up was how interesting Northern California cricket was at the turn of the century in the 1890s. Alameda was a champion of the California Cricket Association for about 3 years running. And you can see the pressure on the cricketers just prior to the First World War as real estate is developing and taking over the land. And Alameda was one of the wealthiest places in California at that time. The Borax millionaire that came out of Death Valley with all those 20 mule carts, he built a house there. And cricket was the game, And you had the Bohemian Club across the bay there. It had Rudyard Kipling as a member and Robbie Louis Stevenson. And then Harrison, he gave a trophy, and he actually founded the Olympic Club. So cricket was in the DNA of San Francisco until the earthquake, and then a lot of that the earthquake. Those guys got on boats and headed down to Santa Monica, and they started playing there on a polo field overlooking the ocean. So I like that aspect of California cricket, and I was impressed by people have actually sent me medals of these whether people used to win in those days, and the administration, I think it's probably about eight teams, but the amount of travel they must have done on stagecoaches, on trains in those days was amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Anyway, as far as my cricket journey is concerned, I mean, my cricket started in colonial Kenya as a 7-year-old in the backyard. So in those days, everything was segregated. Okay, so you had the Europeans versus the Indians, and that was it. Those are the two main cricket communities. And the big game, just like in Sri Lanka and in Bombay and so on, was Europeans versus whoever, and hopefully and they were always beaten for the most part. But then, of course, the English boarding school system. So I went back to England. My boarding school was in Lincolnshire, which is a very rainy county. So we had beautiful cricket grounds, and the school goes back like about 500 years. So I was actually playing under 12s cricket in England, and I learned to seam bowl there for about 10 years. And then Grantham is a small agricultural town, renowned for Isaac Newton and discovering the traction for the tanks and the tractors. So that sort of environment meant you had a lot of farmers that you played against, both in rugby. We played a lot of rugby as well as cricket, and cross country. Of course, you ran across real plowed fields. So you actually became very fit. So as our fielding was very good. And we didn't have many fast bowlers, but mostly middle seam, and not much in the way of spin bowling. So we didn't learn to use our feet very well, with the ball. So I was more interested in in the academics a little bit. So I went, during, when I was in university, I didn't play much cricket until I came over to UCLA. I will say I had been selected by the MCC to play for Nairobi schools. So I was good enough to get recognized early. So at 10 years old, the MCC had discovered a new talent, or so I thought. But anyway, when I arrived at UCLA, I came down past Bruin Walk, and there were these guys in white playing on the left-hand side, and right opposite Paulie Pavilion, which is where UCLA's basketball guys hang out. And it struck me as an amazing thing, and so I just went and said hi. And Leo Magnus came up and introduced himself, and that was in 1976. And first of all, I wondered how these guys could be playing there in America, and actually having access to the land and so on and so forth. And it just so happened that the team I walked in on, University Cricket Club, literally, 76. So 3 years later, with the Associates World Cup, the ICC, and which they first started the Prudential World Cup in 1979 in England, 6 of those guys that I was playing with were on the US team. And at that time, Jim Reed, John Reed's father, was one of the selectors. Tony Verity, who used to come up to this North Bay a lot, was involved. And so at that time, West Coast representation at USA Cricket was very strong.
Yeah, very strong. That's what I've heard about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and the best batsman I've ever seen was Don Weeks. I mean, he had forearms that were twice our normal forearms, and just the power of the guy when he came to the wicket. And he was, I mean, even Gary Sobers said this is one guy that should have been on the West Indies team at a time when West Indies were world beaters. So we actually had a guy that would have been in most regular test sides at that time, actually playing for university. And Tony Verity, being the organizer, made sure he got a theatrical scholarship to UCLA. And that's how he managed to play for university, so that's where Tony was very good at doing that intramural stuff. The other thing that was really good at that time, from middle 1970s all the way through the 80s, we had regular tours to England, on a regular basis. So we learned to play against good teams and different parts of the UK. And I think the same thing's going on now in India as well. But there's no question that touring really helps build the chemistry of a team, because when you're hanging together for 2 weeks or bringing in girlfriends or whatever, you got to be able to handle all those lateral things that are happening. And I've always said that you're not really a captain until you've actually toured, because if when you're on the captain, you're on for 24 hours, when you're touring, as opposed to just getting the guys to the field and getting them to turn up and just being there for the 5 hours and then going home again. No, touring really tests your mettle, and yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why. I think it's one of the reasons why the West Coast cricket was very strong at that time. Had a good touring tradition. I mean, that was just England, but they were also going to Canada, and they were, occasionally they were going over to St. Louis, and you had zonal cricket that was going on, and all these guys were funding themselves as well, except for Don Weeks, of course, and I mean Don. In one game against Vancouver, the total score was 232 runs for 2, and he got 201. Give you an idea of how dominating a batsman he was. Yeah, so that was the sort of stuff that was going on back in the 70s. 80s, I joined British Dominion. Britomah, which had been founded in 1949 by Cliff Severn, and the names. Cliff Severn Field, and yep. His father had kept cricket growing for Hollywood during the Second World War, and playing with Cliff was a real joy as well. I mean, he had opened the batting for the US in the 60s as well, and he loved the game, and he had these rather peculiar fields where there'd be a couple of trees and there were special rules, and everybody got to know about how the Severns played their cricket. But they were a theatrical team. They'd been, a lot of the Severns had actually been in Hollywood plays, and Cliff had actually acted opposite Salisbury Smith in a game. So you had that strong Hollywood connection, which is the SCCA's unique feature. because there's nowhere else in the United States that has that direct connection to Hollywood. And so that connection was still there. And then in the 80s, it went to Pegasus because Roger Davis at that time, who was the wicketkeeper for Pegasus, he was also Tina Turner's agent. And he also, he brought on Sade. So they had great parties and everybody wanted to join Pegasus. So that particular, behind the scenes going on was, again, if you didn't have touring, you had this social activity where everybody got to know each other and like each other and so on. So there was a real communal aspect to the team. And of course, once the airplanes started flying, the Immigration Act changed in 1965, we got a lot more West Indian players and young ones, so at that time, the Los Angeles Cricket Club with the Dohertys, the Oscar Doherty, they're out of Trinidad. All four of them played for the US at one point. And so the West Indian tradition of cricket began to filter, and of course, Leo Magnus, who we all know. So, through the 90s, that was coming on quite nicely. And by the 90s, the Indian community was really beginning to feel its oats. It was just beginning to come in. America was going online with IT. America needed to borrow its next set of slaves, so they're bringing the IT workers. And all of us, what they didn't understand was these guys were really smart and could form their own companies and brought in an entrepreneurial skill. So really, I think cricket changed dramatically as soon as we went online, because people could reach each other around the country. We still didn't have them scoring right. I got to credit Lloyd Jonah with that, because once we started doing American college cricket, back in 2009, scoring was a major issue. And then he got hold of Cricket Clubs HQ. And then once we got Cricket Clubs, and then once we got those guys, we were able to go online with the scoring, and you could do 58 games in a festival or whatever. And all of a sudden now you have a statistical record and you can see who the best players are around the country, rather than it just being, what your social skills are and all that sort of stuff. So, but that hasn't necessarily brought on, the best sort of cricket, because then of course selectors have become much more politicized, and there's a lot more money floating around now, which I know you have to deal with in a big way. One of the guys I worked with in 1999 with the Australia-India A game when Laxman came over, and Andrew Simmons, and a lot of those new guys.
Harbhajan Singh and Ryan Campbell, and
all of those.
Yeah, a lot of these guys who went on to play for the respective.
Yeah, and that was a great. Wait, did you come down for that, Ganesh? It was a great.
No, I was following it. I've been following cricket all over the place, so I was following it online, and I'm not sure if it was on TV, but I probably saw it on TV as well.
Well, you had Mascarenas who put
Mark
the thing together.
Waltel, they put it together. Yes.
Yeah, and then you also had. You had Bobby Raffai, who made sure that all the arrangements around the ground were there. And that actual fact, then Ian Chappell and Holding, were called in to do the commentary for Channel 9. And then the first time I'd seen the lipstick camera go inside the stump so you could get those close-on cam shots. That was before, the cam shots now are different. But it was actually Ian Chappell said, is there any book on cricket in America? And it was that, and my experience at Hamilton, that really made me realize that something had to be done. So that's why I got fired up to do that. But just seeing what could be done, Gilchrist, of course, was the Australian captain. I always liked him, especially when in 1990, later on that year, they won the World Cup, so he had the main inning. That was incredible stuff. So we had cricket come to our doorstep, and so from then on, from the 1990 onwards, we really were quite optimistic that cricket was going to really do something, and then it just went sideways, And I think, part of that was Lalit Modi, the IPL just getting going. The league system was getting tired. I think, or it needed to renew itself. And with the new guys in town, you know, various teams around the country who didn't understand the traditions of all these other cricket playing places, they were all looking for their moment in the sun. And you know, in all honesty, I think it's taken about 10 years for cricketers to realize what we have, both as a history and as a culture, to offer the United States. And now we, you know, having gone from a colonial atmosphere to a fully integrated, diverse, you know, all religions. I mean, I was playing cricket. I didn't play in this game, but the Golden Oldies went down to Mexico City, and we had one guy there that actually, he was 62 years old. He was from Sri Lanka. He had got out of Sri Lanka on a RAF flying boat and been sent back in Egypt. Fascinating family to set up a whole group of Sri Lankans in Santa Barbara. And they ended up, you know, being great contributors to cricket. Anyway, bottom line was, as soon as he got the wicket, he dropped down dead on the wicket. So we had to bring this dead body across from Mexico, which was not easy. Dr. Atterbury was involved. And the bottom line is that we had, you know, we had to put on a funeral service, but we had to relocate it because we needed a Buddhist priest, we needed a Jewish rabbi, we needed a Christian priest, and we needed a Hindu priest to actually pass on the last rites, because the community was so diverse. And it's the most diverse service or funeral service I've ever been to. So I think that's really, in many ways, what cricket can now offer America at a time when it's beginning to, you know, America needs to get a new sense of who it is. And as far as the history that I wrote, I could see America found its identity through baseball once a lot of the cricketers left to go and fight in the Great War, because they hadn't done a lot of youth cricket. And now what I'm seeing, especially up in your area, Ganesh, the youth cricket with Hammett Bush and a lot of the other guys that have been involved is really flourishing. And I think that is the future. And of course, those Indian families, most of those kids go to American colleges. And so that's where Lloyd was able to work on that. And he also found a lot of, you know, college students coming directly from India, as well as the ones that were born here. So that mix, I think, offers, you know, a way forward for the future. But and this is where my argument is, it'll never be, I don't think, like an NCAA sport, because there's just so much in terms of other female sports that have to be allowed to develop, you know, for an NCAA sport to develop. I mean, the guys that I met at UCLA when I first came here, that was all intramural cricket. And you can do a lot with intramural cricket. And I think that's kind of where college will stay for a while. So if there is a pathway that develops, you know, through this ACE cricket, that would be great. But I don't think, you know, if ACE is looking to America to develop mass audiences for cricket in the United States, personally, I don't think that's going to happen based on the history as I know it. I mean, I know that, you know, a lot of local cricket communities will turn up, but I don't think Americans will jump onto the sport per se. And as I said in my interview with Lloyd, I don't think baseball would sit back and let things happen all that easily. I think they would get competitive and be putting on games alongside and all that sort of stuff. So if cricket is to, you know, become more mainstream, as I think a lot of the administrators would like it to become, I don't think it's going to happen so much on the local level. You know, I think if we start getting a couple of cricketers that do well in the IPL from here, you know, we'll become like a recruiting zone, like Senegal is for soccer, or, you know, like some of these countries that like the Dominican is for baseball. And if we can begin to, you know, develop quality players that can find places on county teams, in the old days, you know, there's probably more opportunity now that West Indies isn't as strong as it used to be, you know, and with the IPL offering more pathways, you know, perhaps that's the way forward. I mean, I would hate to see money wasted in the belief that, you know, cricket's going to become America's next sport, because I don't think that's going to happen. What I do think it has to offer is a lot of cultural diversity training, charts for Americans who want to learn, the way CEOs think. I mean, I think cricket's very good in terms of keeping calm under pressure and all those skills that help you in the workplace. That's where I see kind of the future of cricket moving forward. I mean, I still see a great role for it, but we do use a lot of land and a lot of water, and you can't replace everything with concrete, as you know, especially in the soccer areas, right? So I think we're going to have to learn to be good citizens as well. I mean, even at Woodley, we work with the Audubon Society, and they put up the boxes, and they send in the hawks to go and eat the gophers. Well, that's a useful synchronicity going on there, where we don't get so many holes in the outfield thanks to Audubon Society. So I think, and you're very good at this, I think, building those political relationships at the local level are actually going to be totally key. And you see that with the history of cricket throughout the United States. I mean, for 300 years, it's always been those local relationships that allowed cricket to be played. And so if you can nurture those, I think it'll flourish at the local level. And if you can bring in a couple of kids from the local community, and they end up going to Haverford, which does have a college program, or they end up going to colleges in India and are well liked because they can play cricket, or the UK or whatever. That's how I think we can build our goodwill. And so I think we can emphasize cricket would be good for education, be good for multiculturalism, and it's kind of an essential skill of being a CEO, just like golfers, and by the way, cricketers are good golfers too, in many cases. So I think that's kind of the way I see it. And but what are your thoughts, Ganesh? What do you think?
So one of the things that I've mentioned to others as well as 10 years back, when I met the great Imran Khan, the great all-rounder Imran Khan, when he was here,
right,
the World Cup winning Pakistan captain, and he was here for fun. And sitting next to him, he wanted to know more about our cricket, and I mean, he wanted to know about US cricket, and he asked me how many players, serious cricketers, are playing cricket, and I said maybe about 5,000 at that time. His cricketers 5,000 over that time.
Yeah.
What his immediate response was you need to work on making it 10x. So try to make it to 50,000 cricketers, and then you will see the numbers coming out. And when I thought about it, I mean, how long will it take for us to get to that 50,000 number to get that many people?
Yeah.
Only strength in numbers. Only then you'll find the 11 really good cricketers out of that. And then of course, a few other things that he mentioned about infrastructure and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever he was talking. He was more busy with the funding. Yeah, that's something that stuck in my head is what the numbers to be increased to that level. And you're right. We are where we are as far as cricket is concerned. We really need to, as the business partner, whatever they're doing, that needs to happen on the side. But as a national governing body, you need to have focus on what you're here for, and be to develop the game at the grassroots level, and hear everybody's side, not just your commercial.
Yeah.
That's very important. Because all the members are the leagues, and their members are the leagues. Paying for the membership and all that. So it's very important, and hopefully things will change in coming future. I'm seeing positives. It's not totally not totally agreeing with everything that is happening, but better than what it was in the 10, 12 years back. So positive sign.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, you mentioned the Pakistan connection, which goes through Matt Qureshi in Florida, because, that he's been doing those tournaments.
Right.
I guess we're emulating it for July 5th. But to go back to Bobby Rafa in 1999, he ended up founding or organizing, I would say founding, the IPL, the Pakistan Cricket League. And the PCL, and that's been quite successful. And then they asked him to do the South African one. So that's kind of an example. I mean, Bobby came from Pakistan originally. He played for university as well. But there's an example of somebody who cut his entrepreneurial chops here in Southern California, and then it's gone on and made it work for him in back home. So those locally developed cricket entrepreneurs, we have to take advantage of when we can. And I think Golden Oldies, that's another organization, and Masters. I think seeing a lot of older players play now. We're more for fitness, and a lot of them are doctors, actually. They realize it's important to stay as fit as you can. But we do have a projected tour of Pakistan coming up, which would kind of be interesting. And I think, I'd be curious because I've always wanted to see the big mountains and so on. So I'd come at it from a totally non-political point of view. I'd just be, as an anthropologist type, I'd like to see what's going on. So, and I did meet Imran Khan here in 1982. Pakistan played Australia. They were going to play India, but then they had all sorts of Kashmir issues come up and so on and so forth. And I did talk to him in the Australian embassy, and he basically, and I said, well, what do you think to African cricket? Thinking of Pringle and some of these guys that had come out, Tony Gregg, that had come out of that. And he said, there's no good cricketers come out of Africa, And he could be so dismissive in some ways, but that was before he got married and done all those things. But he had a very clear-cut view of what cricket should be, and it's interesting to say that he thinks numbers are key. And I think, the tennis ball cricket, which has been really underpinned Pakistan's development. We're seeing here, probably 3 tape ball cricketers to every 1 hardball cricketer. And, there are leagues here on Wednesday nights in Southern California. And they actually raise their own funds, and they play on baseball fields, and they don't have to fight, about the grass or, who's so in some ways it's easier to put on. And for that reason, in August, we're going to do our first tape ball tournament. Lloyd and I are going to be doing that down in the stadium in Houston, and just see, whether we can get some of that stuff generating, because as you say, it's the number of cricketers on the ground, and a lot of them do convert to the regular cricket. Yeah. What I did notice, because I got involved in the women's cricket, and that was up in Cupertino. You had that ground outside the library there. I remember when that started in 2009, and we had all these women cricketers that were converting from tape ball, and they were all out LBW. So that was kind of the major conversion thing, is getting them used to wearing pads when they go to hardball. But so I think if you have coaches that can teach that transition, you could speed that up a little bit. But also, there's more coaches now than we've ever had. So, everybody, can blow your nose, you better have a coach for it now. It's almost that point. So, and residential coaches and so on and so forth. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like it. Now, if you speak to Viv Richards or Lara, they picked up a mango stick, and that was their first bat. And they would emphasize, just the freedom of movement and the athleticism, as opposed. That worries me a little bit, is that we might be getting too rigid, in some of the ways we're teaching these guys. Don't take the joy out of the game, I guess, is what it's all about. But I think as Dhoni says, actually, in a book by Webster, he says that, when you are a top level cricketer and you don't have a university education, you've got nothing to fall back on, and you've probably got about 7 years, you can say what you want about, wanting to be relaxed and free. He says, but you only got probably about 7 years to make a decent living at the top level. And he said, that's a lot of pressure for these guys. And that side, the money side, it is creating jobs that weren't there before. So that's kind of a bit of a trade-off as well. But I think what I'm thinking is now that we're in this moment of change. It's a very exciting time. And I think it's really beholden on the administrators to sit down and really sort of puzzle out the path as to where cricket should be going from here. I know that touring works. I know that local communication works. The history shows all of this stuff. People like to turn up for tournaments. You often bring in a different audience. It'll be interesting to see when we put this thing on in July with 18 teams and $75,000 of prize money, how many local Los Angelinos come out that aren't cricketers, so developing an audience, and developing commentators and writers in the game, not just one or two, but, you know, a cadre. You know, baseball has sabermetrics. I mean, those guys analyze the ball and all that stuff to the nth degree. I mean, we don't have any of that sort of cadre of stuff. We need analysts of, you know, when you put on these tournaments, you want to be able to break down from the film that comes back who the good players are and why, you know. And so we need a cadre of analysts. But yes, this all costs money. That's the thing. And I think there needs to be a priority shopping list that, you know, should be shared around town. You know, there may be some analysts out there that are prepared to look at film and make some suggestions. You know, so I think we are becoming, and this is what baseball says in the 1890s. We are a more scientific game than cricket, and I think they've kind of proven it. You know, when it comes to analysis and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of room where you know, cricket can learn from America, and I think vice versa too. And I think we have to continue to be open and good hosts to anybody that wants to learn about the game, and as multicultural as possible. You know, so which is one of the reasons why I've been down in Compton for 20 plus years. It's amazing the kids that come through there, and even if none of those kids ever play cricket, if they've had 2 or 3 years. Once they see a cricket game out there being played, they'll understand what's going on, you know, and they'll tell their mom about it, you know. And that's,
you know, the first time you know, you posted a picture of Ted Hayes and the LA Crickets. If I remember, the first time,
yeah.
What, 1997, when they visited Northern California during the Grazing Land Trophy, and that was the first time. It was an eye opener for me because I'd never seen anyone other than Indian kids playing cricket, so this was a eye opener.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they came up there, and that was the whole idea, was that, you know, I mean, actual fact, you know, that was kind of interesting. You know, I'd been down to the domes. Lady Diana had been here doing her thing. I could feel, and this is, you know, you're a political guy. I could feel the time was right. So, and I had been asked by the British American Chamber to put on some function for these guys that were coming over from Bournemouth. Well, that was our opportunity, and I took it in terms of putting the team together. And when I realized I needed to do it was when I heard racial epithets from an English team that was playing under the Hollywood sign. And I actually looked at them and I said, I'm going to put a team together of homeless guys, and we're going to beat you at your own game. And we literally did that within 2 years. So I said, you may think you're aristocratic, but these guys have as much leisure time as well. And I bet they're prepared to train as hard as you guys. And they sure did. Those guys used to get up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. The Jew was still on the grass at the SCCA grounds because we didn't want to be seen practicing. And then all of a sudden we appeared up in Hambledon, and you know, the rest was history after that. The news got going, but the whole point was diversity. Yeah. So that's good.
It turned out to be the US version of the movie Lagan, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the movie had to be made there. So that when Hollywood got a hold of it, and they gave everybody a contract. When they saw it as Cool Runnings, you know, the Jamaican bobsled team that went in and turned over. Yeah. So that they saw that as, you know, guys, the guys that would change things, just having some fun. And there were some characters on that tour. They really were amazing. And one of the guys was arrested when we came back and so on. But it certainly showed that guys could learn from scratch. Adults could learn from scratch. That you could convert baseball players to cricket players, especially if you fed them right, you know. And that was. And that homeless guys, given the opportunity, can perform, you know. And then, of course, the being shown around London by the Scotland Yard to see where all the homeless were in London was a real education for a lot of the homeless guys themselves. So that was, so it was, you know, you have fun with the game, I guess. So, but I'm glad you saw them. Did they play well?
Oh, it was for me for first time, right? When I'm seeing different kids. I mean, they were really so much variety of kids. It was an eye opener. So, what message would you give to the cricket community as well as the national governing body?
Well, I think the message at the local level is, recruit 2 or 3 local baseball players, get them involved, the very worst, if they don't join the team, at least they'll be able to tell their folks about the game. Some of the best players that came out of our private program when we did, Malcolm Nash was up coaching amongst the Catholic schools. Some of those players went on to become very good baseball players, and a couple of them became San Francisco cops, actually. So you never know where these guys are going to end up. So while you have the youngsters, expose them to everything. And if you happen to get 1 out of 100 cricketers as a result, great, So just like Imran Khan says, at that bottom level, which you guys are doing better than anybody else, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I haven't been to Indiana and whatever, but you've got a lot of coaching schools there. Be inclusive. Be inclusive. Don't just let cricket
be inclusive is very important at this time.
Yes, yeah. Don't just go out to say, "Oh, you're not playing that shot right." No, teach them how to play it right. Don't be critical. One example I have of that, we were actually coaching in prisons, and we had these guys come out. And I went up to a kid. He was probably 15, and Mustafa has always been with me on there. We've been working together 28 years. I went up to him. I said, "Look, just get that ball over slightly later delivery, and you get it right on a length." And I looked around, and he'd gone, and he was crying in the tree. It turned out, and Mustafa chatted, and I chatted to him for a while. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, he hasn't seen his dad for 5 years, and he felt that you were being, critical." So you can very quickly, snap out. I mean, if you automatically come from a good family, you're privileged, right? Doesn't matter what color you are, you're privileged. You come from a good family, they help you. Some of these kids don't have families, some, and so on and so forth. So be sensitive to that aspect when you're trying to be inclusive as well. Realize they don't all come like you are. And then I think at the national level, we need more clarity as to what's happening. I think more leadership, frankly. And I don't know whether to my mind, leadership are guys that kind of get into the mix, that aren't necessarily going first class everywhere and trying to impress people with their position, but they're actually leaders on the field, and they actually get involved and they want to talk to people. I haven't seen the current leadership, that doesn't bode well, if you want your troops to go and fight for you. So I think that there has to be more connectivity from the top, and you can't just sit in your office and do a Zoom and expect things to happen. That you want to see that the guy may be limping, that you wouldn't see that on a Zoom. That he may have a bunch of guys that take him seriously, and you may get a much better sense of how to work that particular region just by being there. And I don't see enough of that at the moment. So so be inclusive and put the pressure on leadership to set the right priorities, and if necessary, put numbers alongside it, and then be transparent on the budgeting so that everybody can say, I mean, it'll be political. I mean, they will say, "Well, I disagree with that priority." That's fine. I mean, that's, when you look at all the horse trading that went into Obamacare, but eventually you get what you want. So you have to be prepared to be transparent and then horse trade. And I'd like to see cricket administration have more stomach for that. And now that they're getting paid full time, and I've been hearing all sorts of stories about the wages that are going on, I think that, at the USA cricket level, those are full timers, and they have the time to make somebody out there and get to know the troops. So those are the two things that I'd pass on. And the other thing, of course, just based on the historical record, don't expect America just to accept cricket just because you think it's the best game. You actually have a significant PR job on all levels. And Americans are great hosts and very friendly. But when it comes to, they're also very good competitors. And as you've seen, anybody can play the game if they're given the opportunity as well. And I think say what you want about the Brits. Look how many different nationalities are playing now and enjoying the game. And a game that started in the cold north is now a desert game. I mean, we get skin cancer and all sorts of stuff because we're out there in the sunshine. Right. So, I mean, it's a game that's totally evolved to a new set of culture. And I think from that point of view, we need to be more open to American society as well. Yeah. Mind you, there's nobody likes a curry better than me. Yeah.
Wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful.
All right. Well,
thank you very much, sir. So once again,
Ganesh,
America is a book written by Mr. David Sentance, and I have it right in front of you. Go make sure you get a copy and read. Thank you very much for coming on the show and having a very healthy discussion. We will meet up when I'm down there in Southern California.
Absolutely.
Definitely we'll catch up. So thank you very much, sir. Take care now.
Thanks for your leadership.
All right.
I think you did a great job.
Take care.
You take care. All righty.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.